Tear your tickets, take your seats. It's time for Popcorn. I'm Dylan Bowden.
I'm Ryan Betson.
And tonight, we're going to discuss, with the release of Tomb Raider coming up this week, and also Ready Player One coming out at the end of the month, very heavily video game driven, and also Rampage.
So we've already got people in the chat. We've got Pinch saying good evening. We've got the Mullet Show. He's saying, hey dudes, can't have the sound on as it bleeds into the show on this laptop, but I'm here in spirit. Thank you, Mullet.
Thank you very much, everyone.
He's doing the Mullet Show as we speak.
But yeah, and Rampage coming out early next month as well. Another video game based movie. We thought that it would be the perfect time to kind of not go through the best and the worst video game movies, but ask the question, Why don't video games translate well into movies? Ryan, being a big video game fan, myself being a big movie fan, I thought it'd be an interesting debate. So, Ryan, what do you think is the issue? If not many issues, what's the main issue to you?
Hey, Tarina's here. Hey, Tarina, glad to see you back, man. Tarina's just come back after a long absence on the YouTubes.
Oh, we're favorite guys.
She's going to be back around more, and I can't wait to see more streams and more obviously try to jump in with her as well. Ooh. But yeah, so in terms of video game movies, like I understand why the pull is there. There are some video games that have tremendously just compelling and gripping stories. Think like Uncharted, The Last of Us, Metal Gear Solid. Like these are fantastically told stories. But what they try to do is they're like, hey, that's a really cool story. Let's bring it over to movies. We only have 2.5 hours to tell that 10-hour story. And I think that's where the biggest issue comes from, bringing it from the biggest story to the smaller story.
Interesting.
I think trying to compact it, or at least with the very minimal success of video game movies in the past, they're not willing to invest like what would be a good trilogy, right? So like say the Metal Gear Solid 1 game. I'll use the same sort of staple movies to sort of keep it consistent. So with Metal Gear Solid, like that's a huge, dense story. You jam-pack that one movie, people are gonna their brains gonna explode.
I don't know, but if you cut all the cutscenes together, wouldn't it go for like an hour? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
sort of.
We don't want to be worried about the 10 hours of walking around hiding in a closet, under a box. We don't expect him to sit under a box for 30 minutes.
I want to see a 20-minute thing of him just inching his way in a box.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I never thought about it that way, but
trying to condense a bigger story into a small story is, you'll lose a lot of plot points, you lose a lot of nuance, in the same way that you would say, a 400, 500 page book into like a movie.
But they do it.
They do it, and sometimes really good, sometimes really bad. And us gamers are also really meticulous and horrible people. So it's like it's not exactly what we wanted, and then we get really mad. But I think that's the biggest thing, is because. No, yeah. If they were to really tackle, say, Metal Gear Solid as a proper setup, they would have, probably a trilogy or at least 2 movies. Like, here's part of it, here's the other half, and like, I mean, so really flesh out. They could do story. Like
Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Part 2.
Yeah, they could. But the problem is, with the unsuccessfulness of video game movies at this point, no one's willing to invest that. They'll be like, look, we'll invest money in one because like it's an IP that we know has value, right? Like Assassin's Creed, right? Assassin's Creed's big name. They got some pretty big actors in there. Still garbage film. Yeah, I mean, but like they tried really hard. Apparently, Tomb Raider's in that same direction. Let's see. Justin's jumped in. He goes, I don't know why, but I do know that Assassin's Creed Lineage was a good short movie that was actually made by Ubisoft for Assassin's Creed 2. Oh, and side note, Ubisoft, speaking of, just released a 30-minute like a mini movie, like a short film about Far Cry 5.
Oh,
it's out on Amazon, I think.
Is it CG or is it?
No, it's live action.
Live action.
Looks dope. But that game also looks fantastic too. So.
Well, yeah, in that vein, I mean, there's a lot of things that go into a translation, whether it's book or storybook or short film to movie. Like. A lot of things like even, for example, the X-Men movies, it doesn't look exactly the same as the comic books by far, and it was a big departure when it first started, but people got used to it. And Hugh Jackman really looks nothing like Wolverine.
He's like 10 inches taller or something, right?
But they captured the spirit of it. So there's a sense of, if you capture the spirit of the game, is that a faithful translation? If it's an enjoyable movie, does it... erase everything else that might be completely changed from the game to the movie. Most of the time, the video game movies aren't very successful or entertaining, or just kind of like it. There's the stigma that it's video games. Like and again, people watching TV. Like I go home, I watch Netflix. Or you watch whatever. So you're not just like watching. Netflix is a bad example because Netflix you kind of you have that choice. But TV, it's like people just turn on the idiot box and sit in front of it. Oh, I'm just watching TV. You're an idiot. You're mindless. But I watch TV because I'm watching this show or I'm watching that show, and each show has a different intelligence level to it.
In the world that we exist now, we're sort of the a la carte consumption of content, we can pick and choose what we watch.
So there's that level to it. But whereas, again, there's the stigma of like people playing video games, like, oh, they're just playing video games. Video games are for kids. But now, like you said, there are stories that are compelling and cinematic, and now that the graphics have reached a level that almost matches, you know, computer-animated movies, you can tell stories on that level. But a lot of the time when they bring these games to movies, there's been the argument, especially in the early days. Like, I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, so I was there when Super Mario Brothers came out at cinemas.
Seen it, by the way.
You haven't seen Super Mario? Man, you're missing out. I'll give you it is spoilers, but
yeah, go ahead.
And so people argue this they don't have any story. Like Pac-Man, he's a ghost. No, he's a pack thing, a puck that goes around a maze, eats pellets and fruit, and eats ghosts. Right? Like, what are you going to do about that in the movie? And they had a television series, and he had Miss Pac-Man. So already there, they're like, okay, you got Pac-Man, you got Miss Pac-Man. All right, so they could be like boyfriend and girlfriend or something. But we're getting somewhere.
She's not Mrs. She's Ms. Pac-Man.
I was thinking about it on the way over.
It was strange,
yeah. But then there was like baby Pac-Man. So like, all right, well now there's a baby. So they had the family, and the ghosts were evil, and they fought each other. So they developed an idea of it. But the argument for the longest time has been that there's not enough story in game. Like, what are you going to do? And one of my favorite things about video games growing up, and we don't really have it much anymore, is the manuals, which would tell you the story about the characters. So you'd have like the character tell you all about their history. For some weird reason, their height and weight is always like something you want to know.
In Japanese always do blood type as well.
Oh, blood type, yeah, as well. It's just strange. But and even in Mario, you'd have a backstory that's not really in the game. You'd have little character details and tell you the names of the characters because you don't know who they are when you're playing the game. Koopa Troopers and things like that. So as an example for Mario and a lot of these other games is in the early days, they had to make up the story because Mario is the first video game movie, but it's a really good and bad example because it's hard. That one would be hard. Like now, Halo, Master Chief, cinematic. Solid Snake, Metal Gear, cinematic. You know, it's a story, there's a character, the world makes sense, there's a big world there. Mario, in the game, you play a plumber named Mario. And when he has a mushroom, he eats a mushroom, and he becomes Super Mario. He gets slightly bigger. He has a flower, it shoots fire. He goes down, like, sewer pipes, but he doesn't have a plunger. He doesn't do any plumbing. He jumps on turtles, and he's fighting a dinosaur that stole a princess. None of it makes sense. And what they tried to do is do a literal translation of that, but try to make it sense. So essentially, the Mushroom Kingdom, Bowser steals Princess Peach, Mario goes and gets it. Mario has a brother named Luigi. They're the Super Mario Brothers. In the movie, though, they really meticulously looked at it like, okay, hang on, we've got some problems here. They're the Super Mario Brothers, but his name's Mario and his name's Luigi.
Yeah, his name Mario.
Yeah, so in the movie, it's Mario and Luigi Mario. And I never thought about that, but I'm like, I guess that makes sense, which is dumb. But then they tell this story of there was the meteorite that hit Earth and killed the dinosaurs, but it split the world into two alternate dimensions. And in one world, apes grew into humans, and dinosaurs evolved into like dinosaur people. So they go through, like, Princess Peach is this orphan that's left on a doorstep with a shard of the comet with her.
I've gone really deep into it. It's kind of clever.
Yeah. So by going through, using the shard, they go through a portal that leads them into this dino world. And they're plumbers. They do regular plumbing stuff. And then they go into this other world. And then they're like, well, how do we make logic for things? So King Koopa is Dennis Hopper, and he is like the king of this city. It looks like New York, but it's just like it's just New York, really. And this fungus has taken over the city, which is Princess Peach's father, who was the king.
Okay.
Right. So anyway, the things that they try to explain is they like, all right, well, we need Goombas. So
we'll get to that, Pinch. I like where you're going with it. We'll jump into it later.
So they're like, what are the Goombas going to be? So they make them these giant Goopas. King Koopa's got this kind of like devolving device that can turn you back into your primordial self. Okay. So he gets these Koopas, these people, and they're like big, broad-shouldered guys in trench coat, and they shrink their heads to like dinosaur things. So they've got these tiny little heads with the big teeth that look kind of like the Koopa Troopers, the Goombas, and they kind of walk around as a security. And then there's a stage part in the story where they get these boots that make them jump. They're like kind of like rocket boots to make the idea that they jump on things.
To get that Mario boing.
Oh, yeah, they do. And they have these little like bombs that walk around that blow up, and Toad's in it briefly as like a busker with a hat on. Yoshi is literally like an animatronic velociraptor. Like, they really like, well, okay, we got to put that in it. Let's make a sense of it. And that's where a problem is. But that was long ago when games didn't have stories. Even things like...
You've kind of made me want to watch it, actually.
It's worth a watch.
I think
It's weird. Then the next one along was Double Dragon. So Double Dragon, right? The story is, again, a short story. So your two brothers, Billy and Jimmy Lee, right? You're just hanging out in the street, and the street gang comes along, kicks your girlfriend in the gut, throws her over the shoulder, and kidnaps your girlfriend, right? And some crime lord has kidnapped her. So you walk through 6 levels and just beat the shit out of bad guys. And then...
There's only 6 levels in Double Dragon.
Or whatever it is. It's not many.
Wow.
And then you get to the end, and you save your girlfriend, and we're all hunky-dory. Like, okay, cool. You can make a movie about gangs. You could... there's a structure to work with there. Double Dragon is set in the future where... like garbage is recycled to fuel cars and things like that, and Jimmy and Billy are orphans who were grown up in an orphanage together because one's white and one's like Asian descent for reasons. And the Double Dragon is this medallion that when you bring the two pieces together, it gives you ultimate power. And Robert Patrick, the T-1000, is like this villain trying to get his hands on it, and when he gets it, he turns into like this sand power. And I'm just like, what the fuck? It's just weird. And then that's another example. They're just like, we need to fill in the rest. Like, what are we going to do for an hour and a half? Well, you could have like this Raid-style awesome movie where they just go and beat the shit out of people. It's an action movie.
How fuck goes the Raid? But
they don't.
But yeah, like, compared to that now, where, you know, you think about The Last of Us as an example. It's a story about a zombie hombre, as like an outbreak that, you know, wipes out a quite large number of the population. It's
which
you know,
people get,
which
zombies thing
makes sense. But the story itself is about this relationship between Joel and Ellie, and Ellie's sort of his surrogate daughter, as you know, his daughter spoilers dies at the start of the game, and it's all about them getting her out of this because they believe she may be the cure to all this. She may be the one that can solve it, and it's the relationship that builds between them. So over the 10-something hours that you play, so it's kind of like very different. And then I can't even get into fucking Metal Gear Solid as an example. It's like, you know,
well, again, that would be a hard translation because it's just batshit crazy.
It is very crazy.
But my opinion is that they don't trust in the source material.
I would agree. Yeah, because I think a lot of people that would make that decision or like be like, hey, let's make this game into a movie, they're like, but it's a game.
Well, they're happy to be like, we're going to call it Tomb Raider. And, you know, people love Tomb Raider. There's an inbuilt audience from the old days in 95 when it used to be the original Tomb Raider. There's an inbuilt fan base on the new reboot of Tomb Raider. You know, people know the brand in 2 different generations, and people will go and see it. You know what I mean? They don't have to give a shit about what the story is. They could be like... It could just be like, oh, look, there's Lara Croft, and now there's a guy pooping for an hour and a half in the corner of the bush. And people would still go and see it and be like, oh, fuck, it's just a guy pooping, they got us. You know? But they'd still go and see it.
So we saw Assassin's Creed. Like, I'll keep using the same movies, but just kind of, you know. Like when we saw Assassin's Creed, it was like, okay, this may be something different. Like, this is backed by Ubisoft properly. Like, this is looking to be pretty good. And then we're like, oh...
I mean, again,
and like,
Fassbender was working on it for a long time. He was really keen on getting it done.
And it's almost like they pull the parts that they think people like the games for. Like, okay, people like Assassin's Creed for killing people, and they like it for the big jump he does. And it's set in Egypt.
Well, Jerusalem, where it was.
Jerusalem, you know what I mean? It's like they pick it, they find what they think makes it good, rather than being like, okay, let's look at the whole piece.
Well, it seems to be like how much makes it Assassin's Creed. So we got the name. I like when they keep the font, which they did. They've got... Again, they don't trust in the source material, so they change the character. So he's not the character that you play in any of the games. So it's not Desmond or any of his descendants in the other games. It's a new character, which is another tangent. the animus that he goes into, that was like you lay down. So I get that they changed it so it was like a physical thing that
the animus
around.
in the Assassin's Creed movie is actually visually way more like impressive,
and it makes sense. But like they're like, we'll keep the costume design, we'll do a bit of parkour, but it could have been like a incredible fuck off parkour movie. Like let's just focus on that and give it a story about assassinations. But it just, I don't know. I Assassin's Creed isn't a game series I play a lot, and I know there's a lot of people like, I like this character in number 2, and I like this character in number 3, and 4 sucked, and it's like they're very specific about things. But that was they're already like, well, we're not going to do that story and then that's another argument.
But I think that comes from them going, we wouldn't dare touch that story because people will murder us if we do it wrong.
I don't know. I think that's the argument, and I think I talked to you about this, where I'm like, would you rather see when they were doing an Uncharted movie with Mark Wahlberg and Robert De Niro and whatever the fuck, and it was about like crime syndicates and the underworld of like sales of lost items and artifacts and all this crazy shit that are like, well, what's it got to do with the game? Where in Uncharted, that has story. And you've got Nathan Drake, and you've got Sully, and you've got Helena, and you've got...
With Uncharted as an example, the story is almost secondary to the characters and their relationships.
Exactly. And my argument is I'd like to see Uncharted, Drake's Fortune, told as a movie.
Yeah.
But they're like, well, people have already played the game. They don't want to see the game as a movie. You were like, you'd like to see like Nathan Drake in a different adventure. You know what I mean? And there was talk of them doing a prequel as well.
Yeah, there's last I heard they were still in talks for doing a prequel, and it was going to be Tom Welling, as being young Nathan Drake. Well, so the movies that I keep referring to, I'm using it but very specifically because they're ones that have been in movie development hell. Like we know there's been talk of Uncharted for ages. There's been talk for Metal Gear for a while. Last of Us makes the rounds here and there. You mean like these are very, like, I'm picking them for a reason.
But then again, like those are very cinematic games, and especially when there's someone like Hideo Kojima who is inspired by cinema,
incredibly inspired by cinema,
visual, and even pushing the limits of the PlayStation 1 in the day with a very cinematic game. And now, you know, Metal Gear Solid 5 and well, not Beyond because he's not on anymore.
And Death Stranding when that comes out.
But you know what I mean? Like, why not give him the opportunity to do that? Or like they did with Sin City, where they got Frank Miller, who wrote the comic books and drew the comic books, and Robert Rodriguez, who's a director, and kind of had them co-direct. So you got someone who knows the filmic side, someone who knows the source material in and out, and kind of work together. Yeah,
but I think the issue that when it comes down to, you know, how it's presented, like Watchmen is an example, right? Watchmen is a pretty much shot for shot remake of the comic. Everyone's like, it's too much like the comic. That's the internet, and I think that's exactly why studios are like, look, we want to do this movie. We want to do this movie about Destiny, but we know that we can't do exactly that because people will murder us. But we can't make it too different. It's almost like that. We want a new game, but make it the same, but make it new. It's like Smash Brothers, right? Smash Brothers, everyone's like, oh, it's a new Smash Brothers. Better be a new one, but I want the old maps in there and old characters. But I want new characters too. Put Goku in there. And like that's the biggest debate, you know. Like,
but those ones, for example, are like a coherent story with a first act, second act, third act, beginning, middle, end. You know, it tells a story, and the characters are interesting and they have their own thing. But then there's the MacGuffin of whatever adventure they're on, whatever they need to get, the Metal Gear Rex or the Drake's on Lost Gold. You know, so there's a story there, especially with the Uncharted, and even in the Uncharted like 4 and 3, they go back to his childhood when he was a kid, and how he meets everybody. So there's that element. I mean, another example of like they just look at the cover, or maybe they play the first level or something. You know what I mean? Like Street Fighter was one of the early movies that came out.
Kylie Minogue in it.
Kylie Minogue was in it, as Cammy. And Street Fighter is a game I love, and to anyone else, it'd be hard because it's a one-on-one fighting game. You're in a tournament, you fight each other. You know, like that's pretty much it to people who look at it. But then again, me who like, I play games for the story, no matter what game it is, unless it's like something repetitive like Mario Kart or a basketball or baseball or whatever it might be, tennis. I'm in it for the story. So I play a game and I want to know what the cutscenes are. And like Little Ryan's always like, just skip the cutscenes. I'm like, I'm trying to find out what the story is. He's like, I don't care. I just want to play the game. And I'm like, I don't care about playing the game. That's the chore. I mean, it's relaxing and fun to play and challenging, but that's not the part of the game I enjoy. The story and the characters and where it's going and things. So with Street Fighter, I was huge into Street Fighter and all the characters and their backstories and their endings and their intros and their little jabs between each other during the story and things in the instruction manuals and things like that. So Street Fighter the movie is again like Super Mario batshit shit, and that's hard because Street Fighter had like 12 characters or whatever it was. So they tried to shoehorn everyone in, which I wouldn't have done, and it's hard. And the Street Fighter the animated movie, Street Fighter 2, is awesome.
It's an animated movie?
Yeah, it's incredible. It's like nudity and violence, incredible fight scenes. But in that, essentially Street Fighter seems to be the story of Ryu, and he is trying to challenge himself to become the best fighter in the world and find Zen in himself and fight the dark forces in later games, the evil version of himself. So he challenges people, and you know, there's a way in fighting where you can kind of learn about people from the way that they fight, and he wants to better himself and challenge himself. And he's usually the main character, but in this one they had Guile, who was one of the side characters, still one of the main characters, but Jean-Claude Van Damme played Guile, American Air Force captain who's from Belgium in this one. And Raul Julia is M. Bison, who in the video games is the main villain. He runs Shadaloo, which is this corporation in Thailand that, you know, kind of controls the world and all shady shit. But then they've got E. Honda, who was a sumo wrestler in the video game from Japan. He's like this Hawaiian camera dude. They've got Ken and Ryu, who are like the main characters,
the most
as like gun runners, like running illegal gun sales. You've got Cammy, who was like an English agent, British agent, which she essentially is in this one. Blanca was a big one in the comic, in the video game. Blanca was like this little boy who was flying across Brazil with his family, and the plane crashed. And I'm pretty sure his name was Jimmy or Billy, and he got left in the remote jungles of Brazil and got radioactive shit all over him, and learnt to, you know, live with the animals and learn electricity from electric eels, and became this like beast monster. But in the story of the movie, he's Guile's best friend Charlie, who gets captured by Bison and like played weird shit messages in his eyes and turns him into this thing with this weird formula. Again, Dalsum is like an Indian who can blow fire and float and meditate, and in this he's like a doctor that's white and British. There's Chun-Li. Chun-Li's another interesting character, and they tried to do the Street Fighter Legend of Chun-Li movie where Chun-Li is like a police officer and her father was killed by Bison and she's trying to get revenge. And Guile is the same. Charlie was killed by Bison and he's trying to get revenge for that as well, and they team up. But this is like Chun-Li's a reporter, fucking T-Hawk is just like a military dude, Zangief's like this big moron, DJ's just a guy that works for Bison. Like, they tried to put everybody in and it was just a clusterfuck of craziness. That's not to say that they're like, well, there's no story, there's two dudes fighting, it doesn't make sense. But there is story to the characters if you cared to look. A movie that was successful and followed the formula, Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat is about a tournament where they select people around the world to fight in a tournament against mystical beasts or creatures or people, and it's run by Shang Tsung, who's this evil sorcerer, and he uses the fight to suck the souls out of the people who lose to get stronger. And it happens every 10 years, and the winner of Mortal Kombat kind of determines the future of the world. That's what they did. They made a movie about a tournament.
They had a couple of them, didn't they?
There were two. The second one was shithouse. But again, the second one, and again, it is this thing where they're like, well, this person wears red and that guy wears white. As long as we put them in red and white, that's Ken and Ryu. We did it. Like, high fives. And Mortal Kombat, the only exception with Mortal Kombat was that they changed Sub-Zero and Scorpion, who were like the, you know, the Boba Fett's of the Mortal Kombat series, where they were just mindless drones controlled by Shang Tsung, but they had a backstory, but they didn't really explain it. So that was cool. They were in it. They did their moves. They did their things. They did their fatalities. Get over here. Exactly. You have their moves in there. You have the fatalities. But that was awesome because it knew, like, Liu Kang was like a Shaolin warrior, and you had Sonya Blade, who was a cop trying to get revenge for the death of her partner, and that's what she was. You had Johnny Cage, who was a movie star who everyone's like, oh, he's just all stunts and it's fake and it's not real, and he had to prove himself as a martial artist. It's all in the movie, and that translated to a movie, and that's probably one of like the top 5 most successful video game movies. Why don't they trust in the source material?
Oh.
Trust in it.
I was like, you've now got me thinking of other video game movies that I remember. Like looking over at the shelf here and seeing what was there. I've got Silent Hill back there.
Yeah.
I've been thinking of Silent Hill movie with like Sean Bean. I think was in the second one.
Well, that was one where that was on the way. Like, this is going to be the movie that makes video game movies like legit, because Roger Avery, who co-wrote Pulp Fiction with Quentin Tarantino, he wrote the script for it, and it looks like Silent Hill.
It, like, in terms of they trusted the source material in like its visuals, right? Like those nurses looks legit. Like that is the closest visual representation in my memory. Like, I've not watched this movie since I was it's easily 11 years ago at this point. Easily.
It was a second Silent Hill movie as well.
Yeah, it was a 3D. It has Jon Snow in there, Kit Harington's in
Yeah, it did too.
Yeah, it's like 11, 12 years ago that I watched it. Like, I remember the nurses looking like rad, and
They had the pyramid head.
and I'm like, yes. And they had the same thing where the town's normal, and then the siren goes, the fog comes in. That's where the big bad comes out. And then that part sort of makes sense. There was a lot of they in the same way that like Doom with The Rock, they had that one moment of first person shooting. Yeah. With Silent Hill, there were moments when you're running down particular hallways. By me, they have like very fixed camera angles, and they mimicked it perfectly in a couple of shots, and it's like, yeah, like this is like you've paid attention.
But you don't need it all the time. But nice little nods to that is what makes it good. Yeah, like definitely with that like minute sequence where it does the first person thing in Doom, that was like the coolest part of the movie.
I actually seen it because I've just seen that part.
Oh yeah,
looked but.
But another massive example is, and probably the longest running one, without a doubt, is Resident Evil.
Yeah, with 7 movies under its belt.
Yeah, so Resident Evil 1 is essentially like a zombie game where a group of SWAT team, STARS team, come to this mansion and a zombie outbreak has occurred. And you've got to kind of go through the mansion to uncover the mystery. And it's this slow, plodding, atmospheric kind of game. You know, it's like a horror. It was like the first survival horror game. And then the movie, again, doesn't trust. You got Chris Redfield and you've got Jill Valentine, and they're like the head of the STARS team. But they don't trust in that. They're like, okay, well, we got a mansion, but we're not going to use those characters. We're going to call her Alice, and she's going to be a clone. And instead of like slow and creepy, she's going to do martial arts and kung fu kick everything, and she knows karate, and she shoots things really fast with machine guns. And that's not at all what Resident Evil is. It's very slow, and you like save your ammunition, and it's tense. Like, what the fuck? And then they continued to do that shit, and that was one.
But then they would sprinkle a bunch of ramp shit in there, like 3 movies in. They're like, oh, here's the big bad from Nemesis, and then they're like, here's the guy from Prison Break, Wentworth Miller. He is Redfield, I think.
Yeah, that's right. And then they're like, so eventually when you get to the end of the series, you're like, well, we did get Chris Redfield, and we did get Leon Kennedy, and we did get like Claire Redfield, but they're like fucking like background people for like one scene, like, hey, I'm this person.
I'm
like,
Chris Redfield. And they're
and it's just
Chris
like,
Redfield,
the fuck?
Not
you know what I mean? It's like, why even bother calling it Resident Evil? But it gets the people in there, and those movies seem to be not popular, but they're still getting made. The final chapter came out now, so I assume it's finished. But they got Wesker in there.
Last I heard they're rebooting it.
Yeah, but will they make it like... And again, in the sense of the short films that they were talking about, like when Resident Evil 2 came out, George Romero, who did Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, they got him to direct one of the promo videos for Resident Evil 2, and that was awesome. There's been a lot of Halo short films that have been made.
Now, chat, correct me if I'm wrong. Halo, I think Spielberg signed up to do a Halo series at some point.
Peter Jackson worked on it for a long time.
Yeah, like, so there are talks of doing that, and think of Quantum Break as an example. Like, that's where they've tried to mash the TV series / movie with the game. Yeah, tried to bring it together, and completely unsuccessful.
That was an interesting one. I remember when we went to Weta Workshop in New Zealand, and they had one of the warthogs from the development that they were doing for Halo movie, and that was pretty cool to see. Like, they got pretty far, and he worked for a long time on it with Neil Blomkamp, who ended up doing District 9 instead. But, like, arduous hours trying to get things made. And again, on the other spectrum we were talking about the other day with Guillermo del Toro trying to get games made, and he couldn't. Peter Jackson was trying to do the same thing, develop games for a long time, and it just didn't work out. So the short films, there was the Portal short film by Dan Trachtenberg that was awesome, and again, it captured the spirit of it. Very short, but you got the point of it, and you know, it was like, you know, a prison within a prison within a prison, and the dynamics of the portal gun going through this and doing that and moving everything around, the little puzzle elements, and that was cool. But it was only like 2 minutes. You know, it's easy to do. The example that kind of spurred this was Rampage is being made into a movie. And Rampage is one of my like favorite games to play in the 80s, man. I would borrow that from the video store and play the shit out of it. And all it was you were either Ralph, who was a wolf, Lizzie, who was a lizard, and George, who was a monkey, like King Kong gorilla. And each game, you start a level and you work through like 100. I don't even think the game in the early days had an ending. It just kept going.
NBA God King says, "Hey guys, sorry I haven't been in for ages." No worries, man. We're happy to have you here now. Thank you so much for turning up. Let us know do you have a favorite video game movie? Is there one that you don't like? What's your stands of video game movies? Join the conversation as we're chatting. Go ahead, Rampage.
Yeah. So essentially, you played the main character. Of course we do. And
sure
he came. You choose a character and you just demolish buildings. So you climb up the side of the building, punch it. You got to punch a certain amount of holes in both sides, and then it collapses. You can electrocute yourself with things that you grab inside. There's like a girl in the bath, and she falls out the window. The military come and try to blow you up from the street, and you can like pick up people and eat them for health. Punch planes when they go past. And it was kind of like a monster movie game, but you're the monsters. Rather than being the military fighting them, you're the monster doing everything.
Fortnite is not a game nor a movie. So it's not a game movie, but it is certainly a game, very popular game, and it wouldn't surprise me at some point if they make it a movie.
Probably. But it wouldn't be anything like the game.
No, not at all.
So I was excited for the movie. The trailer came out, and I was going to do a trailer reaction, but I missed it, so I'm just going to see the movie. I'm not going to watch anything. Yeah. And then I went to see a movie the other day, and they played the trailer, and I'm like, oh, man. And again, the fuck... what the movie is about. I knew The Rock was in it, and they had the gorilla on the poster, so I'm like, all right, we can't do wrong. So the story is exactly that. And then the idea is that you were like these people, because when you die, you shrink down into a person, and you're naked, and you kind of walk away, and then you come back. So essentially, the basic story of it was that there was like you're like experiments from a lab, and you were these people that were experimented on, then you turn into like a monster, and you just fuck shit up, and it's fun and it's funny, and it's like you're the monster, not the people. You're on the other side of the spectrum. This one, The Rock, again, like Transformers, where you're like, I want to see fucking Transformers, gonna be awesome. Optimus Prime, Bumblebee doing awesome shit. No, it's about fucking Shia LaBeouf and his girlfriend Megan Fox and the fucking military. Transformers are over there parked doing, you know, they're there. They say a few things every now and then, but it's mostly about these people. So The Rock is like a gorilla keeper, and he found a gorilla when it was 2 in the jungle, and he's been looking after it, right? Then a spaceship crashes, and a shard of it lands in the jungle, or wherever the fuck, and the monkey touches it, and it's slowly over time increasing in size. So The Rock's like, well, George, I'm going to look after you, George. We've got to do something about this. And then the military come in, like, we're going to take this monkey away. And then they're like, you think he's the only one? And then you find out there's a wolf that has also touch this thing, and a lizard that's also touched this thing. So The Rock and this giant George gorilla team up to fight the military, and it's more about The Rock and his George buddy. Rock's in a fucking plane, Rock's in a fucking helicopter, Rock's like punching military dudes, Rock, and a gorilla. Like, they're not even people that turn into the animal. That's the one fucking thing you do. Or make it fun and be like... You know, let it be cool to be like the Hulk, just fucking shit up. And he's kind of like the Hulk, where he talks now, and he's like dumb and like a baby, but the military like evil, like the evil forces manipulating military, and you're just like rooting for them when they fucking eat the bad guy or blow up their tank or kick the shit out. You know, in King Kong, where Skull Island, where the guy's like got the grenades and he's doing the dramatic like death, and the monster just whips him and he falls over the thing and blows up. Yeah. That shit, the fun sense of humor to it. I'm just like, this looks fucking horrible. And they spend money on it. Like, it looks expensive. Fuck knows.
Jumping over to NBA Gon, he says, mate, why don't they make Crash Bandicoot a movie for little kids? That would be awesome, but they have tried that. Well, not with Crash Bandicoot in particular, but they tried that with Ratchet and Clank. So around a year or so, I think like 2 years ago, with the release of Ratchet and Clank, the remaster remake thing for the PS4, there was a in conjunction movie. Didn't do well at all.
Sony made it.
No, I think Sony backed it a little bit, but the biggest problem was that because something we've discussed here before is they held it back for school holidays. So they held it back. School holidays, US, held it back here. So it didn't time with the game. So by the time it came out here, everyone's like, "Why the fuck are we getting this movie now?" And it didn't do well here. I know that for a fact. And because they held it back in different regions, like it overall did really poorly.
Speaking of which, I'm playing like Ratchet and Clank right now.
Yeah.
Like literally, I spent like 3 hours playing it today. It's awesome.
Fucking great.
I've never played Ratchet and Clank, and I know there's like 10 games, but it's awesome.
Ooh, Nighthawk's back.
Ooh,
Nighthawk rocked up on Wednesday and helped me out with Bloodborne. Good kid. They've asked, is this about Tomb Raider and how shit it was? Haven't seen it yet, but we're going to the plan is to speculate about what we think Tomb Raider is going to be like. Because we will be seeing it over the week, and we'll do our full, complete, no-hold-bar spoilers discussion next week.
And hopefully everyone will get a chance to see it too.
Yep,
so
that's why we
all talk about it together.
Push it back a week so that way you guys can all see it and have plenty of time, because a lot of our community members are, like parents and stuff, so we can't always go on release day. But yeah, we're going to break that movie down. Well, let's do a little bit of it right now that Nighthawk's mentioned it.
1 second. I want to watch that Ratchet and Clank movie. I love the characters.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know how it could be bad.
Yeah, I watched the start and I was like, no, bounce.
I think I'm going to watch it.
But yeah, I think it's on Netflix.
Sweet.
If it's not, it's on Stan. I know it's pretty sure it's on Stan.
Well, I'll just download it legally.
Okay, let's talk about Tomb Raider for a little bit.
Okay.
So, what do you know about this so far?
The new one?
Yes. Actually, before we get into that, as we keep getting sidetracked, Pinch did ask, NBA Guy King's off to watch Fortnite. Thanks, man. Thanks for buying anyway. I appreciate it. Yeah, Pinch asked, did we watch the Lara Croft Tomb Raider movies with Angelina Jolie back in the day?
Yes and no. I went to the cinemas to see Lara Croft Tomb Raider in 2001.
I was very excited by her side boob.
There was side boob when she was changing clothes.
Yeah.
Again, that was like one of those ones where they're like, she's wearing shorts and she's got guns and she's got a light shirt, ponytail. It's Tomb Raider. But then she's fighting a fucking robot in like the first 20 minutes. And she's got a training robot in her house. Daniel Craig's in it before he was James Bond.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first Tomb Raider, I mean, it was big. It was Angelina Jolie's breakout movie.
What I remember right. So Angelina Jolie had a really bad English accent, and
Yes.
Daniel Craig had a really bad American accent.
Yeah, that's right. And her dad was played by John Voight, who is her real life dad. And Angelina Jolie had kind of done Girl Interrupted, which got a lot of buzz. And she's been in other movies, but this was like her
big blockbuster.
Made her the Angelina Jolie she is now, and set that trajectory. But yeah, I remember she's fighting that robot. She's got a butler who's like the guy from Red Dwarf. She's got like a gadget dude as well. She goes off on this adventure. Shit happens. She fights these like Aztec like rock monsters.
See, this is where Nighthawk's like, when we jump into and it is on Stan.
Hey.
So we'll jump when we jump into
New one.
New one. We'll get Nighthawk to jump in and have a chat with it as well.
Cool.
But yeah, I never saw the second one. Was it the
Cradle of Life.
Cradle? I'm just like Crystal Skull.
Well, the second one was directed by Janya Bond, who did Speed and Twister, and was cinematographer on Die Hard. So he's an action kind of guy.
Got a good
yeah.
history.
And who was in Gerard Butler's in that one as the boyfriend. But no, I haven't seen that one in total. The big thing was that they had like these flying things, like you know, like the glide
wingsuit sort of thing.
Kind of like a wingsuit, yeah. You know, where they go really fast and like hit the rocks and die.
Yeah, wingsuit.
So that was the big thing that they had in that they thought was really impressive. I think there's jet skis in it as well, but no, I didn't see that. I was like, nah, I don't need to see that.
Well, yeah, this new one starts Alicia Vikander.
That's right, Academy Award winner.
Oh,
for some artsy fartsy movie a couple of years ago.
Oh, do you know who's directing this one?
No, I don't. But Alicia Vikander, awesome in Ex Machina, yeah, and lots of nudity. So I'm just saying.
Oh, lots of nudity,
lots of nudity in that one. But she was awesome in Ex Machina. That's an awesome movie as well. Donald Gleeson and Oscar Isaac.
What's Pinch got there? Jump on what Pinch is saying.
Pinch said, I also actually enjoyed Assassin's Creed, not as a movie, but as a huge fan of the games. It felt more like a fan service. Yeah, that's
okay.
what we said.
Well, I guess for us, not really having a strong connection to Assassin's Creed, probably why we sort of lost a lot on it. Okay, it is directed by Raw Youthfag.
Of course it is. What has he done?
He has done nothing.
Cool. So these kind of movies they just give to usually first or second time directors who've
He's
had
directed
like
6 things, but you have no idea what.
Yeah, and then they give them these big blockbusters.
So this is looking to go along the lines of the 2015 remake of Tomb Raider, where they made her more of a vulnerable character, more of a bit more grounded. So they've changed what Tomb Raider was compared to 1995. This is the first time she's done any sort of Tomb Raider, any adventuring. So there's a lot of carry on in terms of I've never done this before. When she takes her first life, she's like, oh my god, what the fuck? And there's a lot of stumbling. It's not the Tomb Raider that we know, who's like, what, jump, fight dinosaurs, all the simple shit, right? That we know that she could do. That doesn't exist. So
yeah.
It also had an incredibly good story, from what I remember. I loved what they did with Lara in the reboot, and then what they did with her in Rise of the Tomb Raider as well, which they'll now be doing with Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which got announced this morning.
Yeah, that was a trailer that came out.
Yeah, that came out this morning. Pinchy says, "Gotta bounce, guys. Bedtime. Enjoy your stream. Thank you, Pinchy, stopping by. Much love to you." But yeah, so it looks as if they're going pretty much down the lines of what we know this one to be.
Well, again, the game itself looks very much like the trailer of the movie, so that's good. In the game, Lara Croft is in a maybe late teens, early 20s, whereas I felt like she was more in a late 20s, 30s in the original ones, and she was very much a sex symbol in the original ones.
Yeah.
And it was just about the boobs and
the square boobs,
the butt. Boobs. And pointed boobs. Whereas this one, they tried to bring her into the modern day and make her more of a Wonder Woman kind of character, where she's sympathetic to girls. It's like a positive role model for women, which is awesome in the game. So she's she's British, of course, but she had a father who was an explorer, and she's on this vessel, this boat at the start of the movie, and it's going through the night in a stormy kind of weather. And she's got a group of people with her. One of them is a guy that used to know her dad, and it's kind of been a mentor in her life. She's got a friend there as well. There's a Hawaiian guy and a black woman that's the tech person. So she's got this group of people with them. And the ship gets ripped in half, hits something, crashes somehow. And there's this big action sequence at the start, which is in the trailer. And she leaps off of it, lands in the water, lands on the island. And then she's kind of got to just survive. And it's all about being the survivor. And that's what
I'm a survivor!
They have the movie in the trailer. But yeah, so she learns bow and arrow is a big thing in this one.
Yep.
But the idea is that the island has this temple on it, but there's these people that live there like the others from Lost, and you find out there's this megalomaniac guy who is trying to get the power of this ancient queen, which gives you ultimate power or immortality, but there's some kind of medieval or old-timey device that sets an electrical storm around the island, so nobody can get off. Any planes that arrive, any helicopters, it'll just blow up. So nobody can leave the island, and people who have landed there have become his henchmen unwillingly. And yeah, so she's got to find the members of her crew. She learns how to hunt. You've got to collect animals to get food and resources, campfires to sit by to save your game, and yeah, build up your bow and become a survivor. She's just like Bruce Willis in Die Hard, just trying to get through the day, and she's the only one that can kind of have the skills to do it. And it's this awesome adventure. And the plane, which is there's a plane that's left behind, you got to kind of traverse across it.
Yeah, and
that's in the trailer as well.
Yeah, there's an exact moment where you're in the plane and you're climbing through, and then you've got to grab the parachute, and then you fall out. And it's exact shot for shot that's in the trailer. And there's also one thing that's quite common. It's sort of one of the tentpole items in this new rebooted franchise is the little ice pickaxe climbing axe thing.
Yeah, the climbing axes.
Which according to the trailer, she has exactly shot by shot. Like, it looks exactly like it.
Yeah.
So this is where Nighthawk, this is where you jump in and you let us know, sort of gives a bit of rundown of how similar it is to the game if you've played it, and a bit rundown of that. So reviews for it are looking to be very varied. A lot of people are saying that it's not the video game movie that we need. It's quite a good action movie apparently in some places, but there's this is we're going to get some really spoilery without realizing, because I've not watched any spoiler reviews because I want to wait. But apparently there is sort of a story beat at some point that sort of pushes it into a really weird like direction, which is kind of changes the movie. So you're like, yeah. Oh, what the fuck? And then it just
could be supernatural.
Sour taste in your mouth.
Well, I was hoping. I mean, it looks lower budget than the other ones. It still looks good, but not as big movie stars. And it's very self-contained on the island, but she does have that look, younger, more youthful, not as sexualized look to her, which is awesome. But like, I was hoping that it would be what Wonder Woman was for superhero movies, like something that girls can get behind. Has there been any of that hype? Like positive role model.
We'll have to ask our friend Brittany. She was pretty pumped for this, so
yeah. So I'm excited for it still, at least to say. I mean, again, with video game movies, unfortunately, they've set the expectation, it's not going to be amazing. But you just go in, you like the property, you go see it, you don't expect much. And if it's good, awesome. If it's not, then, it's pretty much what you expected. But because those games were like such a refresher for the series, and now they're translating it, it is... Like, rather than just remaking the old Tomb Raider movie or basing it on the old games, like, that was a great chance to be like, okay, there's a new, fresh take. We can redo it now and start something interesting. And so far, I mean, I've only played about half of the second one, Rise of the Tomb Raider. But the first one seems to be like the gritty reboot, the Casino Royale of it. And then the rest is just like more adventures of the same kind of thing, doing the same thing.
Pretty much.
So you think if there anything, this movie would be the first one that captured it, and then sequels would kind of be lesser. So if this one's not great, I doubt that they're going to be trying any harder to do more.
Yeah, we'll be seeing it hopefully this weekend. We want to dive into that one. But now there were some mentions in here as well. We did mention Crash Bandicoot on there being one of the list. Nighthawk would also like to see a Dark Souls movie. That would be really interesting, because like Dark Souls does have a very strong lore and history behind it. But it's like a story that you really have to dive in and focus on. It's not just there. You know what I mean? So it'll be a little bit hard to tell. But visually, like, the monsters would be great. It would be like, ooh.
But they choose like one out of like the five that people love.
Yeah, there's a bunch of weird, ugly looking things. Speaking of ugly, weird looking things that would be very violent, like I would love to see some Kratos. Give me some God of War. You wouldn't take your kids to it. To the Dark Souls movie, I imagine. Yeah, no, you wouldn't. That would be chaos.
Would you like Vin Diesel as Kratos?
I don't know who I would cast, but it would kind of work, I think. Well, because think it this way. So with with old man Kratos here, he's being played by Christopher Judge
from Stargate.
Teal'c. So they've mocapped him apparently, like pretty rigorously. So like, just paint him white, but not racistly, and then get him into it.
Yeah, but I don't think he's got the star power. I don't think he's that fit either.
No, he's not as buff as Kratos.
Shirtless. Who gets that?
Get him
I thought he was the guy who did the voice all along, and I was like, that's awesome. Wasn't. They fired the other guy.
Yeah, they fired him good.
Yeah, it's a shame.
But yeah, that would be that's also a very cinematic game the further it went along, and I think,
massively.
But like this is one of the biggest complaints. Like there's like no story to God of War. Like, there is. Like there's a pretty good story in there. Once again, if you go looking for it. Like one of the big things that's sort of bumming me out right now is people are like, "Oh man, the new God of War, you finally get to see what Kratos is finally a father. He's a parent." But I'm like, does no one realize that the whole reason for like his
rampage,
his rampage, is that he was essentially forced to kill his wife and daughter, and like, that's why he's white. He's white with the ashes of his killed family. Like all these people that just forget, like, oh yeah, he's a father now. I'm like, he's been a father before.
Yeah, that's what makes it cool.
That's what makes it cool that he's now like changing it
and that's
different.
That even in just like a prologue, you get the idea. That would set the tone and set the character of what his motivation is, who he is. That would be an incredible opening sequence.
What else would you like to see? But okay, we'll get
Rampage.
So Pinch did mention this before he bounced as well, but let's go the other way.
Yeah.
Movies that became games.
Those are bad as well.
But why?
Because again, it's the other way around, where it's just a cash cow to coincide with the movie. Like I remember there was a Charlie's Angels game and a Men in Black game, and they're just horrible games. They look horrible. I mean, it was a time when graphics were terrible as well. I mean, there's games like that they really try with, like Rockstar did The Warriors on Xbox One or Xbox, the original.
The Warriors.
Yeah, The Warriors.
That came out years later.
Yeah, it wasn't one of those cash-ins.
And it was a Rockstar game. So Rockstar do have a good track history when it comes to these games.
And it was like, they're fans of the movie and they wanted to make a game in that vein.
I love that game. The game was great.
Played, had a lot of love to it, and that was a good game. What are other good games? Movie games.
Good movie games.
Like
Spider-Man 2 was really good.
Yeah, the Spider-Mans came off the success of the Spider-Man and Enter Electro Spider-Man they already had. There were ones like the horrible ones, like the Sega ones that did Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America. The Captain America one was alright. But like there was the X-Men. It was a Wolverine one, X-Men Origins Wolverine one.
Right, that was an okay game.
It depends because sometimes they get the actual voice actors to come in and do it, and that gives it a bit of credibility. You're like, oh, then maybe I'll give it a shot. Nah, that's horrible. They don't really do them too much anymore.
No,
I would love an Avengers game, and they were developing one, but it never happened.
Well, it is still in the works. There is one with
there's been
Square Enix are actually handling.
And had like how long? 10 years of the MCU,
but
and
it's
they're
not
now
based
doing
on. It's not based on the MCU though. It's an
Don't care
Avengers
then.
game.
Because they've got those ones like the Marvel Alliance ones. Yeah, that was the Iron Man one. The sequel one is horrible. I think the last one they had, there was a Star Trek one. Star Trek, not Into Darkness. Might have been around the Into Darkness time, but the same kind of thing where they did that. I can't think of one that's like, that's actually good. But again, it's just the opposite end of the spectrum where they try and get a cash cow by saying, this is the name. Yeah, that is true. They did make an Avengers game, but Lego. That's right.
They made 2 Avengers Lego games. And that's based on the MCU. They also made a Jurassic Park one, which was essentially like Jurassic World, which was all 3 movies and Jurassic World. Yeah. Lego are pretty good at their movie to game adaptions. Yeah,
those ones, because they put a clever twist on it. It's like, it's the same story, but they do like comedic beats on it. But again, it's just the gameplay itself is just Lego. So you just go around and break boxes and collect pieces and add Lego elements to it. But those ones are fun. They had the Indiana Jones ones as well. Star Wars is an obvious example of games.
Yeah, but they've really kind of fucked with it. Like think about Super Star Wars on the SNES.
Yeah.
It's like there are things you do in that game that have nothing to do with Star Wars.
Well, they got to stretch out a game for like 8 hours. That's the other way around where they're like, we got to make this longer. But those are pretty cool, the Super Star Wars ones. Again, the ones where they take the tangent, like the Knights of the Old Republic and the Force Unleashed and things like that, is where they got their time to shine. But it could, I wouldn't like that in the opposite spectrum, where Halo has like such a rich universe, but you make it about Harry McGee, like the ODST one, which was about some rookie guy, not Master Chief, or Mass Effect, which has a huge universe, and then you set it about Bob, and Bob is this other guy you've never met before, and hey, there's the other characters over there. There's Commander Shepard, he's doing things, but this is about Bob. I don't want to see that.
Yeah, So we're making a God of War movie. It's about Craig, not Kratos. Craig is his brother.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, why bother doing that? It's like making Harry Potter, right? But it's not about the movie. Isn't about Harry Potter.
It's about Dudley.
It's not even about Dudley. It's about someone you haven't seen in the books at all, right? And eventually, like in maybe the 3rd movie, you meet Ron, and it's like, oh, that's Ron, but he's different. He's got ginger hair, and his name's Ron, Ron Weasley, and he looks like Ron, but he's completely different. And then by the 7th movie, you might meet Harry for like 5 minutes.
You're giving me horrible flashbacks to the Prison Break game on PS3. Because I love Prison Break with all my heart. It's like one of my favorite franchises of all time. And then they're like, oh my god, there's a game and the voice actor, and like, all the actors are coming to do it. And like, you play this FBI, or you play this guy that works for the company, and you've got to infiltrate the prison and find out what they're going to escape. So you're going to lose in the end because they're going to escape. But it's like, what the fuck dumb story is this? And there's a Lost game too, which was garbage. But now we're heading into TV and in games.
Yeah, I played through that to get to the end because it was like, find out mysteries of the show. I was like, what?
Was there any mysteries?
Sort of. It kind of like, it started, it was like a circular thing where you get to the end and the plane crashes again, and it's kind of like a time loop. Yeah, video game, like you played the X-Files one, there was a Sopranos one, Reservoir Dogs, that was a movie one.
Yeah, that was a game. Ben, so Nighthawk jumps in and says, oh shit, don't remind me of The Force Unleashed. I sold that with my PS3 and I sort of miss it.
That would be a game that would be worth a HD remake.
Oh yeah, but if you've got an Xbox One, you can play it with backwards compat.
I mean, it still looks pretty good.
Don't try to stream it though, it gets flagged in an instant.
Another thing that people say is an issue with video game movies that I don't agree with is that it's like watching someone else play the game. So you go to your friend's place, like, hey, you want to play the latest God of War game? Okay. And then you just sit there and watch them play and they don't let you play.
That is the biggest difference, because video games are such a interactive medium. It's in that, that's what they are, where movies are such a passive experience. And this comes down to a sort of a point that I made, this cold take that I made on Twitter. I was like, man, the other day I was thinking like, I don't really want to watch a movie, and then I played Wolfenstein for 6 hours. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't think I can sit down for 2 hours and watch something. But then I proceeded to not move for 6 hours and play a game. And I think that comes down to the interactivity of it. Like, I don't want to watch a movie, because I don't just sit there and veg.
But you don't need to concentrate the full time. With the game, you don't have to be in depth with the story. You can just kind of like, punch, kick, or shoot. But
you're still doing something.
Yeah, but you don't have to like engage as much. And then it's the same as like people will just like, it's kind of like just watching the cutscenes. But what? I don't agree with that either. Cutscenes are awesome.
I love cutscenes.
Like, I would love to see a World of Warcraft done by Blizzard, because Blizzard always have these incredible.
Speaking of World of Warcraft,
cinematics.
There's another movie that visually was pretty good. Didn't do so well commercially. A lot of money went into that film. A lot of money.
Yeah, they did try. Again, they try, and they had all CGI orcs.
Yeah, to sort of take away from that uncanny valleyness of it.
That didn't work.
Nope.
I mean, what do you think is the most successful video game movie you've seen? Most faithful?
I don't have an answer for you.
Ooh.
Because like all the video game movies that I've watched, I remember leaving relatively unimpressed. I'm like, oh man, that's kind of butt. I didn't really enjoy that like I wanted to. Or like I remember the Final Fantasy one from way back then. I remember being really impressed visually by it, but in hindsight, I'm like, that movie's
spirits of it. Again, that's like, I mean, Final Fantasy's all over the place, but that movie had nothing to do with anything.
Nighthawk jumps in. They said, speaking of Blizzard, they should also make an Overwatch movie. They have really good animators, and that's something like the characters in Overwatch alone is great, and the whole premise of the game is this setup of these. If I remember right, because I've not played a lot of Overwatch, it's like these characters are like, there's a big war, and these guys are like the saviors, the defenders of the area, and that would be a good story to see, because each of these characters have, like, each character has their own vivid backstory with their own like cutscenes and little stories and stuff. Overwatch is a very like dense game.
Yeah, and it does have that unique style and look to it.
But that's Blizzard style. But the only downside is movies like that take so long to make. Like the animation, you like
a couple of years,
45 years minimum.
What I think.
What about you though? Like, obviously you got Mortal Kombat there is your best.
Oh yeah, Mortal Kombat. I still like Mortal Kombat 1. Mortal Kombat Annihilation was like lower budget cosplay costumes.
Oh, I just realized
horrible special effects. Oh, we got the different one. Horrible special effects. The one that, I mean, there's been some like Agent Hitman was pretty good with Timothy Olyphant. I never really played the game, so I was just enjoying the movie. They also did Agent 47, which was a new one that like a reboot that they did.
There was Hitman, and then there was Agent 47.
Yeah, two different movies. I've seen all the Resident Evils. As much as I hate it, it's like Transformers. I think maybe I'll get something good this time, and they never do. Things that I'd like to see get made though, a Crash Bandicoot movie would be cool. Again, I think they'd fall into similar territory where they're like, how do we stretch this out? You got Dr. Neo Cortex, you've got his girlfriend.
It's Coco's sister.
Oh, his sister, sorry. But he doesn't talk, does he? He's just like,
no.
He's like Tasmanian
They
devil.
made him. They make him talk in later games. He's like, yeah. It's kind of like that voice.
I think just like I think just like the way that Marvel finally, and again, that's another situation where it's like trust the source material. Like they used to make Batman and the Joker's like this fucking gangster, and Batman kills him, and he killed his Bruce Wayne's parents, and it's like, all right, it looks like Batman, but it's not. But it's successful, so people liked it, and it paved the way for more Batman movies. Whereas something like Crash Bandicoot, you'd have to make up a whole lot of shit in between, and whether or not that'll work. And again, I think with the
what was the whoa tune? Was it my accent? So it was my Crash Bandicoot. It was pretty painful. Actually hurt my mouth.
With the way that Marvel took their time, and these characters have been around since the 1960s, and finally they're like, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right. And it's changed cinema and blockbusters and the way that people make movies, and they still don't get it right, but they're still going strength to strength. I honestly think, done right, that Nintendo would make an incredible, they are actually extended universe.
So the company that made Minions and Despicable Me are actually working on a Super Mario film.
Yeah, and again, so is everybody else in a million years, but it seems closer now than ever. But a Mario Brothers movie in CG in that same style,
exactly
and
what it is. Minion guys,
do it like that. It doesn't have to make sense. It's like, but Mario again, he's like, it's a me. It's very stereotype and only has catchphrases like, if I'm talking for a whole movie, would it get really annoying? You know what I mean?
Well, it's kind of like,
or is it like, we've got Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu, and Ryan Reynolds as
Detective Pikachu,
Ryan Gosling as Luigi, and Ryan Reynolds as Mario.
Yeah, but you think about it, in the same vein, Nighthawk said they made a Mario Bros movie where Bowser was an old man.
That's probably the Mario Bros movie.
I lost my train of thought. What are you talking about?
Mario's voice would be grating.
Oh yeah, in the same way that Harley Quinn's voice is, if they did Tara Strong's voice for a whole movie.
It doesn't grate in the show though.
Yeah, it does a little bit.
That's a thing.
Yeah,
but do a Super Mario Brothers movie, do a Donkey Kong movie, do a Metroid movie, do a Legend of Zelda movie. You're fucking on your way, man. Do a Kid Icarus movie, do a Kirby movie. There's been TV series of these things done,
I think they're in the beginnings of that,
legitimately.
Really cool.
But it would be you've got huge franchise potential for all those titles, and they got your fan base, but do it well. I think Pixar would be incredible to do that because they've got their adult sensibility and sense of humor to it. The Despicable Me movies do have an audience and they do look good, but they're not the highest thing. They're pretty up there in animation. Illumination, I think, do the
spot on. Yeah,
the movies.
I can remember what they're called.
But it worries me that the Minions have taken over, and the Minions are those kind of mindless. Well, not mindless, but they've got no voice to them, so they're kind of just saying stupid shit, and they're all got different names, but they're essentially the same kind of thing. Just making fart noises and saying banana a lot and things like that.
I hate them.
Wearing G-strings, and I don't want Mario to be like, oh, he's wearing a G-string now. Hi, he's Mario. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a very hyperbolic look at the movie.
I saw it once and I couldn't get it out of my head. Minion G-string. But yeah, I think those would be video games that would translate well if it was done by the people who created the games in association with, filmmakers.
What did you think of this conversation? What do you think should be, what games should become movies? What movies should become games? Let us know in the comments below. And if you liked what you're seeing here, you can be sure to head to facebook.com/groups/popculturist. That's our community group. We have a lot of conversations about dumb shit like this all the time, as well as Discord. Links are in the description below. If you like what we do, go all those things. Patreon.com/popculturist if you like us that much. But of course, if you want to wear some Popculturist merch, you can always go to thepopculturist.com/shop, where there's shirts, hoodies, cups, bags, everything with a logo smacked on it. There's plenty of things on there. I think that's pretty much it. So until next week, I'm Ryan Betson.
I'm Dylan Bowden. Check out Tomb Raider and join us next Friday. But until then, that for now is a wrap.